to the second section of the presentation on the subject topic of elements in communication, elements of communication. We have already familiarized ourselves with terms such as sender, receiver, audience, feedback, so on and so forth in the previous discussion. Okay, let's get started from an older notion of sender or the source. Okay, in the first model proposed by Laswell and in the second model proposed by Osgood and Tram, both of them involve the sender and receiver, right? There's not much to say about sender and receiver, what they mean, okay? Sender, the synonym for sender is originator, or the starter, or the source. Keep these terms in mind. This is part of your technical vocabulary. Okay? When you write your dissertation, your essays, keep them in mind. Using sender all the time just sounds too monotonous and uninteresting. But keep in mind also the sender in Laswell's model, the sender might not be a person, might not be a human being. It can be an organization. I don't know, receiver. It's the same case for receiver too. So receiver, the synonym of receiver is audience, the person who receives the message and who interprets the message. The act of receiving a message can be passive or active. For example, in the classroom, you are actively receiving my message, right? You are actively receiving the message of the lecturer. You take initiative in acquiring information, understanding what is expressed. The key word is initiative. You do it by yourself, on yourself, for yourself. That's the key word. That's what active means. On the other hand, in comparison, passive. You don't want to know about this. Despite your unwillingness, you are given this message anyway. Even with your protestation, you are giving such a message. Can the message be given to you without your willingness? Give me an example. Sorry, Bill, the water.
Like a billboard. Let's say you're walking through the street and your eyes.
Exactly. The billboards, right? The billboard which advertise a politician who you don't like, who you hate, right? Anyway, it's put just outside of your front door. The first thing you do every morning you get out of the front door is seeing that hateful image on that billboard. Okay? Yes. That is a very good example of passive reception of message or information. Thirdly, and a third component, a third element of communication is the relationship, which I also mentioned. Especially keep in mind, relationship should be defined with yet another word, the so-called power relationship, or the power dynamic in the process of communication. Again, like I just said, two parties in the process of communication might not be equal in terms of their status, especially of social, economical, cultural, political status. We are not equal in communication as individuals or as organizations, institutions. The powerful party may have an upper hand in the process of communication. Okay, even to the extent of coercion. The fourth element, the fourth component of communication is medium or means of transmission. Well, again, we mentioned it already. Okay, telephone, satellite TV, print media, books, newspaper, radio, movie, magazine, emails, video calls, so on and so forth. These are all means or mediums of communication. Keep that in mind. With modern technology, the media nowadays are called multimedia. Multi means, what does multi mean? Many a form of media, which are enabled by our faculty of different senses. For example, the faculty of sight, the power of sight, hearing, touch, 像这种触觉、嗅觉、听觉、视觉等等，这些个都可以牵涉到 many modes. These faculties of our sensory organs, the faculties of our sensory organs may underpin various forms of multimedia medium. And another element is the message. We have been repeating this word on and on for quite some time. Keep in mind the message, since the media is of multimedia, is of multiple forms, so is the message. The message is substantiated through the multimedia in many forms, such as the verbal form, the non-verbal form, the written form, the visual, the audio form, the forms that involves many forms of media combined. Next, take a look at another very important element in communication: the effect, the outcome, the impact, the consequence. All these words, take a listen again: effect, outcome, impact, consequence. In terms of communication, these four words mean the same thing roughly. Okay, you can use them interchangeably. But beware, the outcome or the effect may be of different forms. For example, cognitive effect. What does cognitive mean? Related to cognition, related to knowledge of the world and yourself. Cognitive effect, emotional effect, behavioral effect. These are the most general forms of effects communication can result in, can lead to. In terms of credibility, in terms of reliability, these three forms of effects may not be the same. We're not talking about the same. The most easily achieved effect, which is the most easily achieved effect among the three effects? Cognitive, emotional, behavioral? Which one is the most easily achieved? I'm speaking to you. I've been talking to you. The lecture goes on for half an hour, 40 minutes by now. By now, the content of your thought, the content of your brain, I should say, has been significantly changed as long as you remember something I talked about during the past 1 hour or so. But do I move you in terms of emotion? Do I cause you to feel strong emotions? Not very often, right? I would say I'm changing the content of your thought on the basis of seconds. Every second, as long as I'm putting across information, the content of your thought, the information flow in your brain is changed. That's for sure, as long as you're following me. But are you moved? Are you touched? Are you sentimentally overwhelmed? Sometimes, perhaps, but not really very often. Furthermore, behavioral effects. What behavior have I caused in you? Did you do anything during the past 40 minutes or 60 minutes in reaction, in responding to my message, in responding to my lecture? Not too much, unless you answered one of my questions or few questions. Okay? Did you move around? Did you wave your arms? Did you thump your fist on the desk in agreement or disagreement of my statement? No. I don't see much behavior directly caused by my message. So as far as I see it, cognitive effects can be most easily achieved. Even with your protestation, even with your hatred, cognitive effect can be achieved. And next, emotional. Sometimes, yeah, if I'm talking about nonsense all the time, you might become very bored, uninterested. I may not have caused anything, any emotional ripple in your mind. That can be achieved, but with more difficulty. And lastly, behavioral effect. I would say human beings, our behavior, our actions are based on I don't know. Talk about causes. What are the causes of one of our particular specific action? The causes. Can you think of what you acted just now? Can you think of the causes? I can think of the causes. Yes, the teacher, the lecturer, that's me, might have said something that caused me to act in this way. But so can be the cause be attributed to what I did before lunch. Something I did before lunch caused me to do that thing a minute ago. Or say, how about a year ago? I had such an experience, such an encounter with somebody, some influential, famous people, or someone I hate. That thing stayed in my memory, in my mind, in my emotion for long enough. And just a minute ago, I did something in reaction to that memory. So human beings, when we talk about actions of human beings, especially causes, especially purposes of our actions, it's very complicated. We cannot say 100% sure what the exact cause is our action. Perhaps in a few cases, such as physical, we take some actions due to some pure physical reasons. I'm hungry, I need to eat. That's simple. That cause can be simple and direct enough. Okay, I need to release myself. I need to go to the toilet. That's a simple and direct and single explanation and cause. That will do. But other than that, we human beings are more complicated, conceptually speaking, behaviorally speaking, motivationally speaking. We are much, much more complicated existence. Next, let's move on to another component, another element, the so-called context. This is also a familiar word, as I have perhaps repeated it for half a dozen times. This word context has synonyms such as environment or background in the context of mass communication and communication. We have to keep in mind environment and the background in mind as well. Context, it may include physical context, cultural context, and historical context. The physical context is most easily understandable, graspable. Okay, every message is sent through some physical means, with some physical media, whether it's telephone, whether it's internet. It needs to happen in a physical environment. It needs a place and it needs some duration. So physical context is definitely an indispensable part of communication, the physical. Cultural, of course, as I said, human beings are essentially cultural. Our very existence depends on the existence and the survival and sustenance of our cultural tradition, cultural inheritance. And historical, we might as well think of the cultural context, historical context incorporated under the cultural context. With historical context, we normally relate that part of cultural context which has been directly attached to time, which has a chronicle line in terms of in the forms of a linear string, a linear line of events happening one after another. And then intention and the purpose. Intention and the purpose is yet another important element. And as far as I understand it, the most mythical elements of communication, just like I explained. Intention of human being is really hard to tell, is really hard to measure, hard to predict within the context, within the sphere, cultural and social sphere of communication. We have to be very, very careful when we want to discuss intention or purpose. Intention or purpose might involve multiple layers, multiple spheres, multiple factors. And of course, there are circumstances where unintentional behaviors, unintentional communications are present, such as a person yawning, such a person sneezing, which others might interpret as boredom. The next element is noise or interference. Both words are good, noise or interference. These two words mean the same thing. They mean anything that disrupts communication or causes misinterpretation, misunderstanding in the course of communication. What types of noise are there? Again, physical ones, psychological ones, and semantic ones. What does semantic, the last semantic noise, what does semantic mean? Semantic is closely related to the academic discipline of linguistics. Semantics or semantic normally means the meaning of language. Okay, the meaning of language. So take a look at the semantic noise. It means misunderstanding due to unclear language, due to jargons, technical terms, due to cultural differences. Again, it's misunderstanding of meaning. Physical noise, psychological noise, and semantic noise. A communication can be any or all of the following. An act of communication can be action on others, interaction with others, and a reaction to others, of course. Furthermore, there are three processes. In addition to the above elements or components of communication. The first important process is feedback, as we have repeatedly talked about this process, especially in the second model proposed by Schramm and Osgood. Feedback is very important. It's the response the receiver sends back to the originator of the message. And the second important process is encoding. We have explained encoding and decoding, what encoding and decoding mean in our explanation of the second model, the Osgood and the Schramm model. Let me read it. The process of encoding is the process of converting thoughts into messages. Okay? And decoding is a process of interpreting message based on the personal background. Then again, there is also that process of interpreting or interpretation. Keep in mind, I've talked a little about the difference between decoding and interpreting previously.